men on a bench. What do we want to call it?
I think you just nailed it.
It's got to be two men on a bench.
Two blokes on a bench.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's no denying that's where we are.
We're two men on a bench. I don't think there's an issue with that.
It's quite funny because I was, I had this antibody test.
Yeah.
And found to be positive, meaning that I have had the virus. I started thinking that obviously I regard myself as Joe Average.
Yeah.
I'm nobody special in any respect. I've gone ahead and paid for this test, had this test done because I was just curious. I really, really needed to know for some reason.
Yeah.
And above all, it kind of made me start thinking, well, here I am, Joe Average. I've tested positive for COVID-19, which I picked up, dealt with, got over in a few weeks back in March.
Yeah. Fortunately.
Yeah, fortunately.
So fortunately, you've come through unscathed.
Yeah.
And to me, I would be feeling like you're saying, like an average Joe. I would now feel utterly bulletproof.
Yeah, there's no denying that I don't think I feel smug, but when I got the results, it came via a secure login email.
Yeah.
From this lab in London. And
where did you go? What was the?
It's a place called Blue Horizon.
Okay.
And it's a recognised London facility that does these highly accurate antibody tests.
Yeah.
And it's a business that was used by my wife's safety company. So it's not a cowboy setup.
No.
So there I am in bed with my iPad, kind of opening this email and going sort of fumbling my way through this kind of process of secure login so that you can get your results. And my heart started to pound.
Well, I bet it did actually.
And it was something that I hadn't experienced for a long, long time. Maybe I don't know. Maybe when I did my driving test, or opening my O-level results. So I'm talking about a million years ago.
Well, not that long,
But that was the vibe, I thought, and I was kind of almost shaking as I opened it, and then there it was, positive, positive for having a disease that's killing shitloads of people all around the world, and then you kind of start to remind yourself that we've always been told that for 95 or 99% of us. It's a brush off.
Yeah. I think that's what we forget. To me, this is what I was explaining to my daughter and son, and I was saying, look, they are rightly highlighting that it's a deadly disease. They're highlighting this. It's absolutely right, because there are people, 1 in 100, whatever the figures are, or 90 to 95, who have very little symptoms or any worse than a flu. So don't get it out of proportion, but also don't just dismiss it as, okay, well, I'm just going to go out and go to a pub and a club and do whatever I want anyway. So many of us have felt ill, have just had a cold, but we don't know. So in which case...
But how many people do you know that have said, I reckon I had this after Christmas, or I reckon I had this back in January, February?
Yeah.
And so many people that I've spoken to say that.
Myself having it in March, or having been ill quite badly, like a bad flu, pardon me, but I didn't have a temperature, and I don't know whether I lost my sense of smell, all this sort of...
Did you lose your sense of taste?
Yeah, I've never had a sense of taste, hence the jacket. So I've just dismissed it as I haven't had it, so that's why I'm taking precautions even still, though it is nice to speak to you and not have to worry about...
Yeah, because I'm clean.
Yeah, see, I'd definitely have a t-shirt now. Yeah. I'd definitely have a t-shirt, I'm clean.
I'm not sure that, I would trust my personal hygiene, because I could still go touching surfaces and picking it up on my fingertips and then like transferring it in handshakes and stuff like that. So it kind of makes sense to just stay away from people, doesn't it? Even though I think the whole kind of social distancing thing is going to be a thing of the past very, very quickly. Yeah, I think that most people would just be happy just to say, oh, you know, I'm safe to come and work. I'm safe to come to work. I'm a safe work buddy. I'm safe to have around the office. Yeah. Hopefully, quietly go about their business in the confidence and telling people
with a smug smile,
slightly smug, yeah, new improved smug,
coughing like this.
Now we don't know about the length of immunity, but we know that definitely is some immunity, and that's what I was told. You know, people say, "Oh, you don't know how long. You don't know if you're immune." Yes, you are.
Yeah, there's a lot.
If you have antibodies, you are immune.
There's a lot of areas of this that, because it's been sold to us as being so unknown, we don't know how it morphs into something else or whichever. Totally get that. And there's a lot of stories. There's always a lot of stories that go out there. But I think, you know, my own level, I'd have never known whether a virus did that. I now know a lot more about viruses than I ever knew. A virus to me was just something that just stopped me, you know, just made me sneeze.
Viruses can cause loads of damage. They can cause, you know, cause heart damage, can cause lung damage. They can cause, you can lose your sight, your sense of smell. You can lose your hearing. You can, I mean, and that can happen to anybody, anytime with I think a raft of viruses.
Right. Okay.
And I only know this because I interviewed a professor at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine.
Ear, nose, and throat.
Yeah. So that makes me a bit of an expert by proxy, or a twat.
Oh, I think if you've shaken hands with an expert, something has to rub off. Definitely. Probably a virus. I see so many positives that can come out of this. You know, even if like we're here today at, you know, Hampton Court, and it feels. Now, it could be the placebo, but it feels fresher air. It feels cleaner air. I'm looking up, and normally I would see at least 10 or 15 planes in the air at any one time.
Boats chugging past.
People, this is fine, you know, this is lovely. This is always going to be people walking by. But I would not be able to see the sky directly over the bridge because it would have cars or lorries or buses or everything. And it's pretty clear. And so my positive outlook from this is to how would you kickstart the economy, yet in your mind try and keep this vision?
I think it's already happening, and I think you know, like you say, you're aware that things feel fresher, cleaner, brighter. You know, that might be just because it's a kind of a nice bright day, but it probably isn't. There probably is some truth in that. But I think that if you look at the creativity that's going on around us,
yeah,
everywhere,
yeah,
you know, the way businesses are,
yeah,
pivoting is the word that they use in marketing bullshit. You know, people are pivoting and swerving round the obstacles and becoming really, really creative. You know, the way that pop-up businesses of all sorts are emerging, and people are managing to. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's going to be casualties. There are going to be tears. There are going to be tears, and there's going to be a lot of people that lose their jobs. I mean, let's not pretend that unemployment is probably going to soar past 5 million by Christmas.
I mean, it has to, because I don't know how many the airline industry employs, but it's not just the flights, it's not just the planes that are up there. It is everybody working at the airports. It's people supplying food to the airports. You can't just suddenly wipe that out.
Well, surely it's probably the biggest factor and the biggest reason that the virus has spread around the globe so quickly.
Respiratory pollution. Yeah.
Well, no, not just that. I'm talking about the fact that London and New York, you know, the places where there's been the biggest outbreak of this virus, are the two of the biggest travel hubs on the planet. with people from China that come in business. They stop over. They're much more likely to stop over in London and New York than most other places in the world, just to do some shopping or whatever. So you've got this import of the virus, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way it was. But it was because there were so many flights and so much travelling.
So again, going back to the positive, that's what I'm hoping that people could take from this, is when they take their children back to school now, they've been so used for the whole 2 months of taking their kids for a walk, possibly, but from what I've seen, there's been a lot more families going past my door, and all really pretty much have a smiley face.
I don't think they did at first, but now you're quite right. They're walking along, and you've got these little kind of nuclear families, these family units walking around, actually having spent a shitload of time with each other.
You look at weekends, loads more people in the park, and yes, people will be pointing fingers, or you're not 2 meters apart, whichever. But the thing is, the good side is that they're all out together, and I was just hoping that it could be not the end of the school run, but it could be a different version of the school run could be out there. I look at Thames Ditton infants, and it's bedlam, absolutely bedlam, and there's cars absolutely everywhere, and yet you can only go to that school if you live half a mile radius. So why are there so many cars?
So with all the good stuff, right? With all of the lovely kind of social considerations that are going on, with people looking after each other, looking after their neighbours, talking to their neighbours, doing stuff that is kind of beneficial to local businesses and people generally. There's lots of lovely stuff going on. Yeah. Hold that up against 6 weeks from now, when shops are all open, things are rapidly going back to normal. How much of a percentage of the good stuff do you reckon we'll be left with when all the dust settles?
That actually depends almost on things like this, that people take the time to talk about it, take the time to reflect on it, and do something, either make a little film or get into their communities, and are determined to stick with what they have enjoyed. And that's basically what we'll find out.
But all the forces, all the downward forces of going back to the rat race, are going to be, it's going to be quite extreme. Because I mean, I don't know whether, if in a year's time we're left with 20% of the good stuff that I'd take it as well. But I think a lot of people are kind of ultra optimistic about the fact that life's changed forever. Extinction Rebellion are going to be, the next government. I don't know, but do you know what I mean?
I'm with you.
I think it's pie in the sky to think that this is the big change, because I don't think it will be.
So I'd take. I can go back to your very first point, which was that you were tested, and you have had the disease, and so you are in the for a fair.
Yeah, smug and bulletproof.
And so, in which case, and like what I said, that if I had that, I would be back to work doing exactly what I was doing.
What are you saying? You're saying, what's my excuse for sitting around here?
Yeah, I think you're very lazy and you should be out there. Fair point, actually. Fair point. Yeah. No, but I'd have almost forgotten that it had happened, because my world would be unaffected. And I think that once this has gone through its course, and we have got either a vaccine or have learnt to mentally live with it, I think we will, because the reality is that I think we're still or some people are in a nightmare, some people are in a holiday, And I think that to a degree that will flip. Those people that were in a nightmare will be out of the nightmare, either because death has happened or they've changed their job and it's become a normality. And those that have been in a holiday will suddenly get a rude shock, thinking, "Oh, I've got to pay for this. I actually haven't got enough money to pay for my rent or my house or whichever." And no matter what the government give me, they're not going to give 80% forever.
What about the fact that people that are losing their jobs, that's one group. People that have realised that they actually don't want to go back to their old job,
Yeah.
and they don't want to pick up where they left off. I think there's going to be hundreds of thousands of those.
That's a good thing. They've got out of the rat race.
Yeah, so you've got people that are casualties. So that people that, not by any choice of their own, have lost their jobs. People that have ditched their jobs and taken a step back and thought, right, I'm going to reevaluate things. Yeah. I've only got a few years left on this.
I want to do pottery.
I want to do pottery and live in the countryside. Because if this ever comes back, or it comes back worse, or if something worse happens,
I don't want to be in a city.
I don't want to be in a city. That's kind of, it's obvious, because I felt suddenly very vulnerable in the bog roll days, when I thought they're just going to shut down everything within the M25, and we're going to be locked in, and everyone on the outside is going to be kind of darling buds of May. So they're going to be picking apples and going to village fetes, and then all the cities are going to be locked down hellholes like Escape from New York.
But I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people will be reevaluating where they live.
It's going to tip a few scales, isn't it? In every part of people's lives, they're going to think right the way from, do I need to get the Jeep out and take Percy and Amelia to infant school? Could I possibly turn my back on this lovely house that I've built and decorated, and all this lovely life that I've got around here? Could I really tip that in for a life in a village somewhere?
There's so many things. Like I say, we can focus immediately on the negatives again, or we can look at my thing is the little victories, the small victories that you could make. Walking your kids to school, possibly, rather than driving them to school. All of those people, like myself. So I would, I've certainly gained weight since being in lockdown. But then that's because, I can barely fit in the screen.
Feel the legs lifting off the ground this end of the bench.
I was worried.
And I've been packed up on as well, so you must be stuffing your face.
And I feel a bit. Is this solid ground around this end? It's clay, this area, isn't it? I don't think they'll get this bench out. But so I normally, I'm a decorator, so I'm normally working each and every day, and it's quite physical. So in which case I will normally eat whatever I want and will stay the same weight. However, I don't do any exercise. Well, now I've been doing some exercise, going out on a few walks, bit of running, bit of press-ups or whichever it may be. And again, I see lots and lots of people doing this. And if that can be part of their lives, and they could stick with that to me is another win. But it's a small victory.
Yeah, I know.